Well, I'm Zach Richardson, the Academic Doctor, and what I want to do is give you a chance to see who I am, some of my artwork, some of my creations, I would say, and the things I've given my life to. So if we walk around this way, I have this piece that came directly in from Haiti. I was supporting some students who were selling off what we call the oil containers, and then I brought it back to the States and I actually painted the piece myself. I'm an avid reader, so I spend a lot of time reading because I believe that successful students are those students who spend an appropriate amount of time actually studying and reading on a daily basis. One reason why Johnny can't read is because Johnny don't practice reading. So as you come this way, this is one of my sculpture pieces, and as you may see, I'm heavily involved into looking at aeronautics. I have a few students who are actually taking it upon themselves to get their pilot license. I love to say the communication, aviate, navigate, which means can, is not quite in that order, but my students out there, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes down to communicating, aviating, and navigating. And so here's some of my sculpture pieces. As we look right here, I call this the African eagle. And this piece right here was done to symbolize what goes on in the rich lives of an eagle, but to talk about that journey from Africa to America. And so I have the African eagle, as I would call it. When you look at my artwork, I love to talk to students about the difference between chess and checkers. I don't care to play either. What I like to tell students, the best way to find out who you are is a cool game called Go. And we'll see Go in a little bit. But one of the things I tell them all the time is I love to play Sudoku. See, when you play a Sudoku, you don't have any opponents. It's just you and yourself making great decisions. You come here, here's some of my books. I've written 10 books to date. Right here, there's about 7 on the stand, but I've actually written 10 books. And one of my favorite books is looking at the works of Ken Burns and Mark Greenberg talking about the story of Barack Obama. One of my pieces of artwork deals with, it's called Simply Blessed. These are actually bullet shells that talk about the number of African American people that was murdered by cops. If you see the ones that's not with the bullet shell, that represents the likes of Eric Garner, the gentleman who was choked out in New York City, and George Floyd. And so they don't have a bullet because they use other ways to murder these men. One of my favorite pieces of artwork talks about America. When I talk about America from a perspective of what's really happening, I want to believe that because of a black man becoming president, it began a system of trauma for America. So we had Barack Obama, and then we had this guy named Donald J. Trump. So the reality is, if you take 3 letters from what I call Trump, and you take 3 letters from Obama, you get the word trauma. And so I decided to use some equations to explain the trauma of America. As an art form, I have the flag of Florida upside down because we're doing things ass backwards. And then I have some more of my art against the wall. One of the things that I'm proud of today is talking about my Big-Headed Beaver and Friends. So I was able to write a core curriculum that dealt with teaching kids the importance of ABCs, academics, behavior, and character. Beaver is my guy. He's the lead guy. He has a large head because growing up, they used to tease me and call me big-headed. And so I decided to create a character that looked back at my childhood trauma, which we call adverse childhood trauma, or adverse childhood experiences, which is ACE, the ACE. And so I had to build a sense of resiliency. As we walk towards this room, it's because I've been to 6 continents in many different countries. I have my students, when they come in, they get to explore their beautiful brain over the places you'll go once you become more educated. And as you see here symbolically, it looks at the different alphabets, and it talks about navigation and those air traffic control words that you would use. So I have my students to study and learn from A to Z and how they apply themselves. As I walk this way, I like to think about the history and how I trust and believe in the Lord. One of my favorite verses is in Proverbs 3:2-6. And it just pretty much says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall guide thy paths. As we come this way, this is my place for Apollo. So I dedicate this room to Apollo, but this is my sitting and my reading room. And what it does is give me a chance to look at and explore life through history. So I have many books here, as you can see, where I spend a lot of time reading books on a daily basis. I love to read. I love to read. I have a sculpture of a short school bus because I remember growing up in St. Petersburg, and they used to tease the kids who had learning disabilities by saying that you rode the short bus. I was so fortunate in Leon County to actually purchase the old Sales school bus that looks exactly like this to pick up my students to teach them the importance of character education. I was also fortunate to go to the Legacy Museum, and I was inspired by one of the famous artists on what they call the hanging tree. And so I created my own rendition of what would a hanging tree look like. And so the different colors represents the different last names of the slaves once they were, as they say, set free. I don't believe in that. I think within reason we are still enslaved. And here are my three famous guys. Okay, and I love these guys. You have Martin Luther King, you have Gandhi, and you have Dalai Lama here on the wall. As you turn this way, I have an affinity and love for space, so I've done some stuff with the NASA program. I actually wrote my own curriculum to get students involved in the importance of science, so I called it my STAR program. We have STA cube, R squared, and then the cube represents three forms. I want kids to learn the importance of science, technology, arithmetic, or better yet, mathematics, anatomy, which is so important. Knowing how your body functions and operates give you an upper hand on most people. Robotics, and back to my famous reading. And so what you see here is my Xaverity logo, which we'll talk about later, but this is my space station to encourage students to really take seriously their math and their reading and their science skills. So I'm always trying to encourage students to go all out when it comes down to math and science. As you come this way, this game right here is called Go. It has two simple rules. It's two simple rules. Every piece that remains on the board must have at least one open point. Players are not allowed to make a move that will return the game to a previous position. So what it is making you understand the importance of being strategic. Always being strategic. And I have the American flag that represents if you're going to be an American citizen and if you're trying to be free, you better be strategic. I won't speak no further on that subject. As you come this way, here's the rest of my mascots. I remember as a little boy, I had the ideal in my head, so I sketched it out. I painted it. And then here's the actual mascots in their suits, and it's kind of fun to do the impossible. I remind my students, I'm not here to be average, I'm here to be awesome. And so this hallway is dedicated to Lamont Nixon. He was the gentleman who gave me seed money to be able to produce these mascots. As you come in here, this is my office space. And so right now I have research on the ground that deals with how do we address cancer. There is a cure. I don't know if they'll ever let us be able to talk about it because there's so much money in the treatment that there's no real money in the cure. So it's two ways to make money off of cancer research. You're either going to have money for, as we say, doing research, or you're getting money to service or to help the person. Never curing them, but you're just going to treat the ailment. Research, treatment, but there's no cure. What I have here is 3 bears because I want people to practice common sense. So you have the white bear, which deals with white Americans, or better yet, the polar bear. You have the black bear, which deals with blacks or African Americans, and then you have brown for all other citizens. And so what I want people to do now is to start exercising common sense. Having a donkey and having an elephant is not cutting it. We have to be able to have common sense and do what's right if we want to survive in America. I love my scriptures and sayings, so it reminds me throughout the importance of having God's word first. Trust in the Lord with all thy heart, lean not to thy own understanding. This beautiful woman is Theola Dorsey. She's the one who adopted me. She worked for the Department of Defense. She was actively involved in some research that talked about cancer. Unbeknown to me, I had no clue of what my mother knew. Ironically enough, I believe she was unalive because she had government secrets that they never wanted to be released to the public on how do we fight cancer, how do we fight AIDS, as well as how do we fight heart disease and stroke. I'm just saying. So as you come this way, this is an area where I utilize for doing my Zoom, and then I always tell my students to take their meds, and meds is simply mindfulness, exercise, diet, and sleep. And so I came up with a core curriculum where there's a pill-shaped device that if students spend 15 minutes a day, 8 times a day practicing their English, math, reading, and science, I can guarantee them full ride scholarships to pretty much anywhere in the United States. As you come this way, I always tell my students sometimes you have to derail yourself. You know, The Little Engine That Could was my favorite book. And so I have a train set that reminds me of the importance to let everybody go sometime. You know, even being with my autism and my dyslexia, I do need a break at times. And so I tell people, I am that little engine that could. And as you see, I've done a lot. All the art that you see in this room are my art pieces. Sometimes I find art pieces at Goodwill or the thrift store and I redo them. This is one of my favorite pieces that talks about the history of America with the cotton. I asked the question, why is Lincoln turned backwards? Now, as you know, the penny is no longer in circulation, or won't be in circulation after this year. They're not reproducing any more pennies. And then we get to my back part of my building, and I'm always thinking about history and the mere fact that I'm going down in history as well. I tell my student, what does it really mean to be free, and what does it mean to be in bondage? And I have my Bible verse, come to me all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11:28. And these are my heroes. From the likes of Dick Gregory, my guy, Samuel Jackson, we have Ben Carson, we have Malcolm X, you know, and then people always ask, and then my man James Baldwin was always a truth teller, and my favorite of all, out of all the people from the past, is my man Nat Turner. That's my guy. I love me some Nat Turner. As you come this way, I want you to see the actual mascots and the puppets that I created. You have my mascots, my puppets, you have my prayer boards that's utilized to teach kids the importance of praying, and that's why I have my piece of art that says kneel to God and stand up to anything else. So with this being said, I've always wanted to do right by others. I knew what it was like to grow up in poverty. I know what it's like to somewhat be sick. The spoiler alert is I have cancer. I have esophageal cancer. And so I've been working my behind off to find a way to eradicate all cancers. And so I took my research to other folks. And now I think, or better yet, I know we can cure cancer. Better yet, they already have the cure. They just won't release it. That part. As someone who's a sneakerhead, as they would call it, I love custom sneakers. And so all these shoes were designed by me. This is my inner workings. Not these pieces. I just love this piece. That green is my favorite color. But one of the beautiful pieces highlighting how I came up with my company. We have the Academic Doctor, which is a grenade, because I said I wanted to bring this system down and then rebuild it and figure out why things are happening the way they're happening. I'm a man that went to 13 different plantations to try to look for clues in 13 African American museums. I've ran for office of mayor. I've created schools, developed programs, became an artist. I one day decided that I'm going to write down all my accomplishments. And here are my accomplishments that I've accomplished in my lifestyle. And there are some I don't even include on my sheet of paper, because there's so much more for me to give when I beat this cancer. I will never forget the time that they told me I had 90 days to live. And I started doing my research. looking at carbon ions, looking at CAR T cell therapy, looking at what we call the CHON-P of science, which is simply carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus. I'm telling you, if people knew how the body worked dynamically, they'll be less likely to eat that junk, and they'll be very mindful. And what happened during this time with neodynamagnetics, I was able to get relief and my cancer went away. But as it would be, you can't say you have a cure for cancer or they'll call you to the carpet. I'm telling you right now, there is a cure to cancer. Carbon ion is something that was done in the Western world, and now they bring it to the United States. Our governor just recently on January 15th of 2026 talked about the mere fact that they're going to have Mayo Clinic. It breaks my heart because I know where they got this from. They got it from me. And then here in my art gallery, what I have here is my studio, because I come in here to get rid of my pain. I paint away my pain. And if you ever thought about the word paint, you will see it spelled P-A-I-N-T. The first four letters is pain, P-A-I-N. And I always tell people, I'll say, you know, I ain't scared. I ain't afraid of anything. I ain't afraid to die. So what I do is I come in here and I get lost. I create things that's never been created before. I look at things from a subjective standpoint of when they talk about the Last Supper. And I'm saying they must have been in whiteface back in the day, because we all know according to God's word that those disciples had to be black. And then I look at a piece of art that I did that dealt with wonton. And what it represents is when I was in school, I got into trouble. And I was just simply saying, not now, but the teacher, who happens to be Asian, thought I was making fun of her, sent me to the office, got paddled, but when they finally had a chance to diagnose me, we were talking about dyslexia, not now. Most people don't know how severe autism can be. They have no clue or understanding that autism does not go away. As a 55-year-old man, I still deal with my autism. But what I want you to know right now, that there is a cure for cancer. If you were able to take the development of carbon ions, which is a very heavy metal, and you smash that cancer cell, it will bust out in different pieces, and then you come back behind it with what we call CAR T cell therapy, we can eradicate cancer by doing that. It's no different than any other disease. It's all about finding a mechanism which allows you not to have those items to continue to grow. But they don't want you to know that. Again, carbon ions. And then you mix that with a little bit of CAR T cell therapy and you can eradicate cancer. Trust me.
In Jacksonville, which is a major milestone for cancer care in Florida and across the country. And we are here today with the backdrop of all the heavy artillery you see for treating cancer to announce the next major step forward. Mayo Clinic is now launching the technology for the first carbon ion therapy program anywhere in the United States of America. And in fact, it'll be the only carbon ion therapy program in the entire Western Hemisphere. So this is newer technology. Japan has really embraced it. Mayo's the first one in the United States. You know, this requires capital investment. I mean, you see here, we were looking at some of the rooms.
When I consider what has happened with the onset of finding out I had cancer, I was very depressed, I was very angry and frustrated. But what I did, instead of just being frustrated, I dove deep into it, the science, and understanding what they were saying. It started with GERD, gastrointestinal reflux disorder. And then they told me that it developed into a condition called Barrett's esophageal cancer. At one particular point, when I was down at Shands, they had given me 90 days to live. That was back on May 20th, 2020. And I overcame that. And then lo and behold, it came back. During the whole entire process, I worked my ass off, trying to figure out what can I do to eradicate Barrett's esophageal cancer. Same thing with the esophagus part. Now it has plagued my body in my esophagus, throat, as well as my stomach. And so I'm sitting here today with some very, very unique science that's going to help people in the future, if they allow me to speak about it. One thing you can never say is that you have a cure for cancer, or you may become unalived. I am going to boldly say that I have a cure for cancer. One of the things that you're going to hear a lot about in the days to come is what they call carbon ion. And you're going to hear a lot about what we call CAR T cell therapy. I would like to get into it, but I won't yet. I won't do it yet. But I will let you see just a few pictures that keeps me motivated when I think about Moffitt, when I go back into the history and look at this picture of the spearmint, when I look back at my documenting this gown getting ready for radiation, when I sit back and think about Shands Hospital, or better yet, after going in, getting an upper endoscopy with the balloon dilatation, or better yet, getting a transfusion, or looking at my esophagus through radiology associates and the food was not trickling down, or when they told me that you're not bleeding a lot, but you're really bleeding a lot, it made me become very skeptical, because as a skeptic, I realized that there's no money in the cure. There's only money in the treatment. And I know for a fact that carbon ion with a little bit of CAR T cell therapy could destroy cancer and many other different types of ailments. But you know what? We may never get a chance to know that, because they're trying to prevent it from being spread throughout the country. And so I want people to understand that we must take the time out and understand, if you do nothing else, go and read up on carbon ion. And then turn around and look at CAR T cell therapy. It's very expensive. The CAR T cell therapy cost me over $500,000 at least. However, I'm still here today.